Welcome to the show. I'm Jason Whitlock, and I'll tell you why Bill Belichick just cost the Patriots that Super Bowl.
And I'm Colin Cowherd, and I'll tell you why Tom Brady should have been Super Bowl MVP.
Can't wait to hear
It's
this.
embarrassing that they
Can't
didn't
wait
know
to hear
this.
this.
Speak for yourself starts now.
LeBron James is going to be very jealous.
On an
Look at this, he
island
played
right
kiss
here.
up with Tom Brady. All right, hello and welcome. We're joined today by Fox NFL analyst Tony Gonzalez and former NFL head coach Eric Mangini. Let's start in Minneapolis, where Nick Foles had the game of his life leading the Eagles in an epic shootout last night to beat the Patriots for their first Super Bowl in team history and their first championship in almost 60 years. This game had it all. A David versus Goliath quarterback matchup, wild trick plays, and a last-second Hail Mary that fell just out of reach. In fact, probably the only thing missing from this game was defense, with several offensive records set, including the most combined yards in any game in the entire history of the NFL. Here's Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles after the game.
You know, a couple years ago, there was a time where I was thinking about hanging up the cleats. And, you know, I think as people, you know, we deal with struggles. And that was, you know, a moment in my life where, you know, I thought about it and, you know, I prayed about it. And, you know, I'm grateful that I made the decision to come back here and play.
You know, this whole postseason, Nick has shown exactly who he is and what he can do and what he's capable of doing. He's well deserved of the honor, but I know that he would give credit where credit's due, and he had a lot of playmakers tonight make plays for him on both sides of the ball.
Weren't able to perform at our best. Obviously, didn't do a good enough job coaching. Missed a lot of opportunities offensively in the first half. Didn't play good enough defense. Didn't play good enough in a kicking game. It just wasn't quite enough against a good team like Philadelphia.
You know, I'd obviously love to not have it stripped from me, so I was just holding the ball, trying to get it downfield, and those guys had a good rush and got in there and made a good play. And that's what they've been doing that all year. I mean, we knew they had a good rush, and they made a good play. They made a good play. They made a good play at the right time. I mean, they made one good play at the right time.
Cowherd, did that offensive explosion make last night the best Super Bowl ever?
No, I don't think I'm going to be sitting with my kids in 25 years saying, remember that Nick Foles Super Bowl? That was the greatest ever. I thought it was sloppy. I think there was a little controversy.
Sloppy.
Like, I thought New England special teams were a mess. I thought there were mental errors, 12 men on the field. Nelson Aguilar runs out of bounds. Listen, I've seen 8 New England Super Bowls. They've all ended like this. There was the David Tyree catch, to me, was better. Listen, I thought last year's game, the Edelman catch, is one of the most absurd things I've ever seen. I'll tell you this, the Seattle game, to me, was the best game ever. That game, the Russell Wilson completion down the sideline, then they don't run it. That to me, is the best Super Bowl I've ever seen. But I've also seen Terry Bradshaw, you know, our teammate here, in 2 or 3 all-time Super Bowls.
Look, I think that was the modern version of football. That's what they've been building for.
Yeah.
All the rule changes that they've made over the last 20 years were to create that Super Bowl. Yeah. But it looked like a well-played Pro Bowl. Offense is just going up and down the field. And so to me, I do think for what they're trying to do, this was the ideal Super Bowl. For me, I like to see defense played. I like to see big momentum changes because of turnovers, because of, you know, you've changed field position and you force people to punt. And so for me, I enjoyed it. It was entertaining, but the best ever always includes a great defensive performance matched against a great offensive performance. And we just had 2 tremendous offenses just going up and down the field. And I'm sure those that play Madden and my mother and people like that love the hell out of that game.
Yeah, we're not even talking about a great defensive performance. We would have liked to have seen
Some
defensive performance. And it's a situation where you have one punt in the game, and it's a little bit like arena football, just going back and forth. In terms of great Super Bowls, I thought the Seattle-New England Super Bowl, where it ends on the goal line. But remember the Tennessee-St. Louis Super Bowl,
ends on the goal
where it
line.
ends up, what is it, a yard short, or a little less than a yard short on the last play. I did like the fact that Philadelphia overcame what they overcame. I like the storyline with Nick Foles. I like those types of stories, and that's, to me, what made it.
I do think we're going to be talking about Nick Foles 20 years from now, though.
Especially, you mean Nicky Foles. All right, Nicky Foles. Statues everywhere in Philly. I enjoyed it. I would say this. I don't know if it's the best game. It's the most exciting game to me for all the reasons that you guys said. And also the stories. You bring up a good point. The Nicky Foles thing, honestly. Come on.
It's got a Rocky feel to it.
It's unbelievable to me. And that's what makes it so enjoyable to see against all odds, against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and you got this backup quarterback who was considering leaving the league. I mean, this is drama. This is Steven Spielberg. This is Oscar-winning performance. I don't know who's going to – Mark Wahlberg's probably going to play him. It's going to be a great story just from that standpoint. And then, obviously, going up and down the field, I like points. I know there was no punting, but that's what I like to see. The catch, they got the catch calls. I'm sure we're going to talk about that a little bit. I enjoyed every aspect of this game.
There were fascinating decisions made in this game, too.
No question.
That added to, that's what kind of offset the lack of defense, just in terms of what Doug Peterson did right before halftime. And I know there was a lot of focus on that going forward in the trick play, but what he did on the final drive on fourth down, when I think a lot of guys, even with the Patriots offense moving up and down, may have punted or certainly wouldn't have thrown the ball there with Nick Foles. I just thought there were just fascinating decisions all the way to, again, we got the whole mystery around Malcolm Butler and why he stood on the sideline. This is, you know what, this is one of the most memorable Super Bowls, and so many different things happen.
Most great games are imperfect. I mean, they really are. If you go to Alabama, the Alabama-Georgia game, Alabama had a player go after a coach. They had a player collapse. They butchered a kick.
Backup quarterback comes in.
Yeah, I mean, literally, that's the drama. I mean, like this drama, we have a controversial call. We have a Hail Mary. We have Nelson Aguilar runs out of bounds. There was Bill Belichick didn't go for it in the fourth. Doug Peterson in his own territory did go for it in the fourth down. So there's a lot of, I always think great games have good arguments at a bar an hour after. And this definitely, it is a great Super Bowl. I just think the Seattle, that Marshawn Lynch, Russell Wilson, Malcolm Butler play to me is one of the plays of my life.
I agree, but it's one play. There's several things that happen here that I'll never forget.
Well, in Tom Brady's first Super Bowl, the fact that, I mean, his story was pretty unique. We're coming as a 6th-round draft pick, getting to play after Drew Bledsoe gets hurt. We get into the playoffs. We have that final drive. We're 14-point underdogs. And there were a lot of subplots to that as well. I'd argue that could be in there.
Hello, everybody. Jason McIntyre here. Thank you for listening to the Speak for Yourself podcast. But I wanted to tell you about another podcast at Fox Sports that we are really excited about, and that's Alexi Lalas's State of the Union podcast. That's right, U.S. soccer legend Alexi Lalas will be partnering up with Fox soccer guru and researcher extraordinaire David Mosse to review the top storylines in soccer across the globe. Each week, Alexi will give his State of the Union on American soccer as it rebuilds for the future. Subscribe and listen for free on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. The first episode will drop Tuesday, February 6th. Now back to the show.
Clearly, the Pats could have used some help on defense, which is why everybody's scratching their heads over Belichick's decision to bench the hero of Super Bowl 49, cornerback Malcolm Butler. After the game, Butler said the team, quote, gave up on me, while Belichick said he did what was best for the team. Yeah, right. Former Patriot Brandon Browner disagreed on Instagram, posting, quote, a locker room was divided pregame, most yards ever given up in a Super Bowl game, and your best defender over the past 3 seasons doesn't get a snap. You were hurt/burnt, or he was needed tonight. Foolish pride. The post was liked by both current Patriot Dante Hightower and former Patriot Jamie Collins. Whitlock, did Belichick's pride cost the Patriots the football game?
Last night I thought it did. This morning, today, I don't think it's about pride. I actually think Bill Belichick is taking one for Malcolm Butler. I think if Bill Belichick wanted to spell out the reasons why Malcolm Butler got benched, people would be like, oh, I get it. And Browner's had some additional posts over social media that allude to some potential problems involving Malcolm Butler that caused him to be benched. I think Bill Belichick is actually taking the high road here, not throwing Malcolm Butler under the bus when he's leaving New England. He won him a Super Bowl with a big play. I think out of respect for Malcolm Butler, Belichick, he's not going to say why Malcolm Butler got benched, but I don't think it's foolish pride. I think it was irresponsible behavior by Malcolm Butler that I would imagine led to this.
Well, even as a parent, if you're too rigid or your punishment's too strong, there's repercussions. You know, that's the dad that doesn't let the daughter do anything. You know, she ends up being the rebel. And if the stories are true, what Malcolm Butler did, it doesn't feel like a game suspension. It feels like a dumb move. You keep a guy out for a quarter. I think in the end, if a 53-man roster, 52 guys paid the punishment for one guy. And I don't like that. I don't like that. And I remember in high school.
That's why I blame Malcolm Butler.
I'm not saying he's not culpable, but if everybody else worked for the last 7 months on this team, and literally one of the defensive backs was like, yeah, I didn't know before the game. So now my assignments change against a multiple offense that's well coached.
This is a really difficult situation when you coach the secondary and work in the secondary and you prepare one way throughout the course of the process. The player understands how he fits in the scheme. Everybody understands how they fit in relationship to that player. And then suddenly it changes right before. It's a problem, especially against an offense like this with shifts and motions and all the things that go into it. But just like the Garoppolo trade, we're never going to figure out the different layers behind this. And there has to be something that made him make the decision that's a lot deeper than just one event. To me, it's got to be bigger than that. And look, Malcolm Butler needs to get his story out, because when he goes into free agency, you're talking about one of the greatest, or arguably the greatest defensive coach, benches you before the Super Bowl. Teams are going to need a little bit more than, I don't know why he did it, before they sign him.
Yeah, and because of what you just said there, I refuse to believe that Belichick would compromise his team to send a message to one player in a Super Bowl game. I just don't. I don't see that. And I thought more about it too. Like with you last night, and I think on your show earlier, I was saying, yeah, that might have been foolish, or maybe if he could think about this, Belichick, maybe he would change his mind. But I don't think so. I think he felt in his heart, this guy can't help us. He can't deal with the shifts. I don't know what it is. But there's something there that I have to trust the great one. Why would you go against what Belichick's doing now?
This game, though, Jason, it was different. First of all, New England's never sloppy on special teams. They were. They never got a pass rush. They're the great adjusting team. They never adjusted defensively. They were as bad in the second as they were in the first. Didn't go for it in fourth. I guess that's a coin flip. It didn't. There was so much noise leading up to this Super Bowl. Documentaries. This whole week, they were off brand.
I went into this game at the end of the week saying Philadelphia was going to win because I thought something was off with the Patriots. But again, circling back to Malcolm Butler specifically, they wanted to trade him. You know, he won them a Super Bowl, and they wanted to move on from him. That's an indication that there's more of a problem with Malcolm Butler than just his on-field performance. He sounds like a high-maintenance guy, and I guarantee you, if Belichick made this decision, it's about what transpired all season long, and he got to a final straw Super Bowl week.
And there's a lot of truth to that. What comes out in the media is such a tip of the iceberg in terms of what really happens throughout the course of the season in the locker room. We only find out a small percentage of it, so you would have to imagine this was the final straw, as opposed to a one-off event where he said, okay, hey, I'm going to make this decision, you know.
He won you a Super Bowl and you wanted to trade him. You wanted to move on
and also, let's remember that this defense was thin to begin with. Hightower's gone. So you're thinking to yourself, I mean, if you watch the film, you guys watch film, Philadelphia's O-line jumps off the tape. You're probably thinking to yourself, we're not going to get a huge pass rush, meaning I need my best defensive backs.
Maybe he's not the best, though. That's the thing about it. Maybe he's just not that good compared to the other guys. Maybe he understands the scheme better.
What bothers me the most about this is, or concerns me the most, is Dante Hightower liking what Brandon Browner said. This is the defensive captain, and he's got a 3-year extension. That to me stood out as more than anything.
That stands out to me because I think it's frustration. He just lost the Super Bowl. And come hell or high water, he wanted Malcolm Butler out there because he gave him the best chance, Tony. You can't he played 98% of their snaps during the regular season.
And Jacksonville.
You can't go from that to you don't even play in dime and nickel situations?
Come on, though. Do you really think in a Super Bowl situation, I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to send a message to this guy?
No, I don't think it's about sending
cost
a
me
message.
a Super Bowl? I'm just saying, I think we can win without him. That's what it's saying.
He's definitely saying that, but I think he's also just staying true to his message to the team. The Patriots, going all the way back to their first Super Bowl, no one's bigger than the team. Next man up. He's been preaching that for 17, 18 years, and Malcolm Butler, it seems like to me, must have just been pushing and pushing and pushing the envelope. Belichick.
Safe to say he's gone.
Welcome back. Joined now by Fox NFL analyst Mark Schlereth, founder of the Big Lead, Jason McIntyre. Let's return to, of course, the Super Bowl, where Nick Foles took home the MVP after a stellar performance, 373 yards, 3 TDs, but his numbers actually look pedestrian next to Tom Brady's. Of course they did. 500 yards, 7 passes at 25 yards or more, 23 passing first downs. Good Lord. And by the way, rushed repeatedly. I know the Patriots lost, but should Brady have been the MVP?
No, and hell no. And, one guy trailed most of the game. That's why he threw more. And one guy was facing a defense whose secondary seemed clueless and or totally afraid of getting a pass interference call and letting the referees take the game over. Nick Foles had one of the all-time great Super Bowl performances.
Oh, boy.
Tom Brady had some nice stats. Cowherd, you do know the first half actually counts in football.
All I know is blind resume. If you and I apply for a job and you don't have any friends in the company, and your dad didn't work there. If we just apply for a job, blind resume, the best resume should win. 135 yards passing, less of a running game, having to play from behind, and Philadelphia's got a better pass rush. Tom was hurried 9 times. Foles was largely untouched. More big plays down the field. Oh, yeah, Brady lost his best receiver in the second quarter. And also, Brady had for the first half to keep Gronk in to chip block because they were concerned that Philadelphia's pass rush would overwhelm New England. So they kept Gronk in to chip block for an hour.
Name me the top 4 passes completed in that game. The passes that anybody will remember and talk about. They're all thrown by one guy.
The Chris Hogan touchdown. You don't remember that one? It was perfect throw.
Hey, it was wide open like all the other
Well, there is
Patriots.
that one you were given that the guys touched, controversial. Chris Collinsworth said, "I give up." That's the most memorable touchdown to me.
The problem with the blind resume is, from your reference, you were blind while you were watching that game. You didn't actually, I look at, if you want to make an argument, you don't make it for Brady. You want to make an argument, make the argument that the offensive line of the Philadelphia Eagles was the MVP. You watched them pick up blitzes. You watched them dominate the line of scrimmage. Do you know how great it is to be on offense? And you'll attest to this. When it's 2nd down and 4 every time, because you're getting 6 yards a clip when you run the ball, and you're in situations, favorable situations, 3rd down and short, where your whole playbook is open from a conversion standpoint.
Look at that throw.
Yeah, well,
I couldn't make that.
Listen,
Come on.
Brady was phenomenal. There is no question.
Brady was good.
5 football fields.
Yeah.
Trailing most
Brady
of the
was
game.
good.
Yeah.
Hey, man, one guy converted 10 of 16 third down.
Yeah, when you don't face a pass rush.
No. That means he got in 3rd down situations 16 times. The New England's defense wasn't nearly as horrible as you think. And again, I'm not saying they were great, but Nick Foles was phenomenal.
And the other thing is, Nick Foles threw dudes open.
Yes.
Like, those were good throws, but they were wide open receivers. By the way, I could pick out 4 or 5 balls that Brady threw that were woefully inaccurate. Behind the receiver, could have been intercepted. I thought Nick Foles was exceptional.
Throwing into tight windows all day.
Throwing guys
the one
open,
thing
yes.
You miss on the resume. This guy just started like 2 months ago. Okay, he's been with 3 teams in like 5 years. This is a guy who, for 2 weeks, we said, "Oh, Belichick, the greatest adjuster in NFL history." Halftime adjustments. What did he do to Matt Ryan last year? Confounded him. Falcons did nothing in the second half. So we expect all these adjustments for Foles. What did Nick Foles do in the second half? Lights out. He out-Brady's Tom Brady on the final drive in the fourth quarter. 7-minute drive to win the game. Brady gets the ball back twice. What happened? Nothing. Fumble, Hail Mary, incomplete. I mean, Nick Foles, by far the MVP, I think.
I always think, what do you do with what you have? I think when you lose, he literally lost Gronk in the second half against Jacksonville, and he lost Brandon
Has
Cooks
no
here.
impact on this game.
Well, I mean, to me, it's just like if you lose your best coworker and you still overcome it and you throw 500 yards.
You mean like Jason Peters, who's going to the Hall of Fame?
Yeah. Or
Brandon
Darren
Cooks, where's he
Sproles.
going? I mean, Brent Sproles could be another Hall of Famer as well.
Well, who had the better defense? Who had the better O-line?
I'm not sure either defense has anything.
Right.
The Eagles' defense, again, Brady said it. They made one play. He's not. They didn't.
Right.
The Eagles' defense was not great.
He had the ball. His first 3 drives, going in with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, was 3 drives, 3 touchdown drives, all I think 75 yards plus on each one of those. I will tell you this though. Roster-wise, the Eagles are a better football team. Roster-wise, you go man for man, there's no question. But to come in there, Nick Foles, come on. Nick Foles has been a backup. He had the one great year with Chip Kelly. He went to the Rams. He was awful. Basically asked for his release, went and did a football rehab year in Kansas City.
Quit football.
Right, wanted to quit football, comes back, and then he's thrust into this, and he wasn't very good the last 2 games of the regular season. And Doug Peterson sits down, his staff goes back to that Chip Kelly time when he went 27-2, touchdowns, interceptions, really re-implemented some of that kind of RPO, collegiate style mix, kind of amalgamate that with a pro style of offense. And this kid has been phenomenal since the first quarter of that divisional playoff game. That is 11 quarters in a row where he has been lights out.
He made throws on the move. Look, the 4th down throw to Ertz won the game.
What was a pick?
No, it was it was the only place where Ertz could catch the ball and get the first. It was an incredible play. Nick Foles, as well-deserved an MVP as there ever has been in the Super Bowl. All right, welcome back. Tony Gonzalez and Eric Mangini are back. Let's move to Nick Foles, who defied all expectations, leading the Eagles on one of the most improbable Super Bowl runs in history after Carson Wentz went down in Week 14. But with Wentz still considered the future of the franchise, Foles is already having to answer questions about his own future.
I'm not worried about my future right now. There'll be a time and a place to handle all that. But I take a lot of pride in wearing the Philadelphia Eagles jersey, and I just enjoy being here. It's such a great team. I'm excited for Carson Wentz coming back healthy.
I know you haven't had much an opportunity to think about this at this point, but is Carson Wentz still your starting quarterback? We have an open competition in training camp. Can a Super Bowl MVP go back to being a backup?
I knew I couldn't get off this stage without that question. You know what? We're just going to enjoy this moment. I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to enjoy it. We're going to get on this plane, go back to Philadelphia. We're going to celebrate with our fans back in Philly. We got a long off season. Well, really a short off season now. We're just going to enjoy this moment.
Cowherd, Foles has a year left on his contract. You think he'll be an Eagle next season?
Yeah, and he should. They need him. He'll be the best backup in the league. And 2, that offensive line and that coaching staff, 2 former NFL quarterbacks, you got momentum. Listen, man, you want to know who needs a quarterback? Arizona, defensive head coach. Denver, a guy you wanted fired, defensive head coach. Jets, defensive head coach. Bills, defensive head coach. That is built for a quarterback. That offense, that line, those backs, and Howie Roseman, they'll just,
Thank God you're not Foles' agent. He's making $5 or $6 million next year. What do you think he's worth now? You think he's going to settle for $5 or $6 million?
So you think he should go make $17 million for a coach in Denver you wanted out?
He has no choice to now. Last week, I wasn't expecting a guy to look like Roger Staubach and John Elway wrapped into one in the Super Bowl. Now that he's done it, his value's through the roof in this league. Brock Osweiler got $18 million. And this guy now has a chance to $18, $20 million. He's got to do it. Well, he's got to leave. He's got to leave Philadelphia.
He doesn't have any choice. It's not his decision. He's got a year left under his contract. What's he going to do, hold out?
Absolutely.
Oh, as a backup?
Hell yes.
Okay, well, then go ahead and hold out. You could argue, that coaching staff could argue, that organization could argue, we did it with you, we'll go do it with somebody else. I mean, they could make, that's going to be the counter-argument in negotiation.
For value.
Well, I know, but you've got a situation where Carson Wentz got hit a significant amount during the course of the season. The amount that he got hit per dropback was significantly higher than a lot of other quarterbacks. You could easily be in a situation where Nick Foles plays again, and he's shown that he could do it.
If you were an NFL head coach, again, and just won a Super Bowl, and you were under some contract that paid you well below your value, your agent and you wouldn't say, hey, man, I just won a Super Bowl. You got to renegotiate here. You got to pay me what I'm worth.
Well, this is why it's so hard to repeat the second year after a Super Bowl, is because everybody on that team feels like they're worth significantly more than they were yesterday before they won the game.
Yeah, he's got a strong case. You know what? I hear you, but I think you have to really think about who Nick Foles is personally.
Yeah.
Personally, and understand this: he's
an American
Christian guy,
an American.
That locker room, a lot of people didn't. I found this out when I was out there this week. I was out at the Super Bowl. Carson Wentz Christian, and I'm talking about faith.
Oh, he's going to be a pastor.
It's a big deal. He wants to be a pastor, so he don't care about money. He wants to be a coach, football,
Wrong.
But I hear you. I think Nick Foles, he's not going to want. I thought about it. If that was me, I am gone or renegotiate. Give me $10 million instead of $5 million, and I'll be this guy's backup, and that's fine because he loves that locker room. He loves that locker room in Philly.
What pastor do you know that doesn't understand the power of money? No, and I mean that in a positive way in terms of
one who has enough money to last the rest of his life. He's already been paid. He's got cash. He's very simple. It's not like he's going to Vegas like you.
No. I'm saying he's going to do great things with his money, and he's going to execute his Christian vision with that money. And someone, his wife, his pastor, his parents, his agent will explain. Baby, we can do a lot more good for God with an extra 18, 20 million coming in.
Can I show you a graph, though? This is what happens to, Super Bowl MVP when they leave the good team. Yeah, here's Jeff Hostetler and Doug Williams the year after they dominated the Super Bowl.
Doug Williams was old, and Jeff Hostetler none of these guys did.
Oh, yeah, Nick Foles was out of the game. Had to be talked in by Andy Reid.
They also go to horrible teams after this, right?
Where do you think Nick Foles would go?
That's what I'm saying. You're right. That's why I think he's going to be in Philly.
He'd go to the Jets.
Nick Foles also had an unbelievable season at one point where he threw, 26 touchdowns and 2 picks.
Yeah.
And then after that, there wasn't very much going on with him until he got back in Philadelphia.
There wasn't a lot going on with Kurt Warner either when he was bagging.
All I'm saying is it's not a predictable. You can't sit there and say this is definitely how he's going to play.
But
next
year. that owner, they owe him some cash. He played lights out, and the reason they won the Super Bowl is because of him. He's the MVP. Absolutely, they need to renegotiate his contract. Give him $10, $12 million.
How about you give a nice check to his church?
No. If I'm Jacksonville, all the quarterbacks out there, if I'm Jacksonville, why wouldn't I want Nick Foles? Why wouldn't I want Nick Foles over Kirk Cousins? If I'm Denver?
But which guy is he? Is he the guy that we saw a few years ago that goes 26?
I'm not sure.
That's everybody.
I know, but then he disappeared, and then he had this run. Before the playoffs, there was nobody that was going to be knocking his door down.
Not everybody's a gamble. You and I sat on this show for 6 months and went, doesn't everybody see how good Jimmy Garoppolo was? You and I weren't shocked that he was really good. Aaron Rodgers isn't a gamble. Breeze, Big Ben, Brady, Wentz, Luck, Russell Wilson. Those guys aren't gambles.
That paid Brock Osweiler.
Okay, that was a
You're
bad...
telling me he doesn't inspire more hope than Matt Flynn?
He does.
A bunch of other guys. He's the best quarterback. I would put the biggest bet on him of all the guys that are available.
I think you can make that argument. Okay. But I'm saying is the teams that need a quarterback are mostly awful with defensive staffs.
Jacksonville, Denver. Isn't there another good
Cleveland?
Not Cleveland.
Jets.
Buffalo, Jets.
Minnesota may need a quarterback.
But here's the thing. I agree with what you're saying, but I just think from a personal standpoint, he doesn't want to leave. He could leave, and probably if that was you or me,
didn't you love Case Keenum 2 weeks ago?
He's under contract.
Like Case Keenum. What?
He can't go anywhere. He's under contract. Where's he going to go?
If he plays for that money, I'm going to eat one of my hats on air. If he plays for that money.
You sound like a guy who's broken a lot of contracts.
He should.
Welcome back, Tony Gonzalez, Mark Schlereth here. Let's move to T.O., who was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame on Saturday. He came up short his first 2 years in the ballot. A lot of people didn't want Owens in due to his character issues, including our buddy Whitlock here. But even you gave it up for T.O., tweeting, quote, "Congrats, man. Yes, I wasn't a supporter, but I sincerely hope this brings you joy, peace, and a new level of respect. You were a tremendous player. Be a good teammate to your fellow Hall of Famers. Congrats." To which T.O. replied simply, "Kick rocks." Whitlock, did T.O. deserve to get into the Hall?
Look, again, based off talent and production, absolutely. My standard, if I were in that room, I would have went against him again because I don't think he was a consistent contributor to the overall greatness of his teams. I think he got booted off too many teams. But, again, it's over with now. T.O. is a Hall of Famer. He's got his gold jacket. I'm in support of him and the Hall of Fame and the guys that inducted him. I lost the debate. There are many more players that I have a problem with being in the Hall of Fame than Terrell Owens. I mean, that I just don't think their play was good enough to be in the Hall of Fame. And so, I'm done bashing Terrell Owens in his Hall of Fame deal. T.O., I've kicked some rocks and I'm over it.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought Hall of Fames are houses of production, not houses of worship, not houses of character. They're houses of production. A Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Show me your platinum records.
There you go with the Hall of Fame.
Well, that's when all Hall of Fames are like that. I mean, here again, no drugs, no cheating, no doubt. I got massive production. By the way, he couldn't have been that hurtful to a team's momentum. He got to Super Bowls. The Niners were good. Philadelphia was good. So, and those were good teams when he got there. They were good teams when he left. Listen, he was needy. But come on, man, not everybody can be Larry Fitzgerald.
We're not asking for Larry Fitzgerald.
Well, I mean, again, his numbers are tremendous. He didn't play with, I'm sorry, I don't think Donovan McNabb's not an all-time great quarterback. He played with some okay quarterbacks and put up monster numbers.
He played for Andy Reid, one of the great offensive minds in football, according to you and most people.
Very clever, yes.
Donovan McNabb was a hell of a quarterback in his time, went to multiple Pro Bowls. Jeff Garcia was a Pro Bowler. T.O. helped him do that. Look, I don't have a problem with T.O. being in the Hall of Fame now that he's in.
Friday,
yeah, I did. Now that he's in, look, I try to respect all the Hall of Fame. Again, when I think about guys that don't belong in the Hall of Fame, T.O. isn't the highest on my list. There's a bunch of other guys.
T.O. was an incredibly productive player. And because he was a productive player, he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, to me, that's the end of the story. Like I always say, if I put a 5-minute highlight tape of myself together, there's no keeping me out of the Hall of Fame. It's the other 7,000 minutes that I played that's keeping me out of the Hall of Fame, right? So that's the problem. If it was the Hall of Good Guys, I'd be in. If it was, I'd be in the Hall of Good Guys. I wasn't a good enough player to be in the Hall of Fame. He's a great player.
Not even a good player.
He was a great
player. And so I look at all the
bad teammate, great player.
Well, there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys who aren't good teammates that you look at and go, that dude's a great. Hey, listen, I don't need to pick out curtains with the dude. I just want him to show up on Sunday and wreck the game. And as long as he does that, we're going to be all right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and coming off the field, yeah, you don't care what the guy does. You can sleep in your car. You can do whatever you want. Just show up and get sacks or catch the football, whatever it is. You do it and do it great. T.O. did that. Deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I always look at this. I heard this from somebody. I don't know where I heard it from. But if you're telling a story of the NFL.
Oh, that's
telling a story of the NFL. T.O. has to be mentioned. If you were explaining what the NFL was all about from the beginning of its inception to where it is now, his name would come up.
It's a fairy tale now. It's not a fairy tale.
Forget about what he did off the field. I'm talking about from on the field, what he's did over his career.
My problem is with this standard they've created. Can you tell the story of the NFL without this guy? And it's like, this isn't a children's story. It's about what you did on the field, in the game. And so I get it. People that can't evaluate football, they want to turn it into a storytelling deal. And can you tell the story without Tim Tebow? Ray Rice. Okay. I can tell a bunch of guys you got to throw in there if it's just a story tale.
But he couldn't have been that. There couldn't have been that much disdain for him in every locker room. Now I think he may have driven some coaches crazy. But
that's part of football.
No question. But every time we did stories at the other place, there'll always be players like, I like T.O. Crazy players. Pac-Man Jones got a lot of boys in that locker room that love him.
A lot of guys loved O.J. Simpson. A lot of guys love a lot of guys.
Up being sinister. T.O.'s just needy.
Again, you can find someone on every team that got along with, X number of guys. There was a bunch of guys that didn't like
I think your argument holds water if he's a good receiver. And you're like, okay, does he? He's the baseball guy with a 288 career average. You can't keep Jeter out. He's way up there.
All right, let's do this then. Let's reduce the argument to this. Everybody's acting like it's a crime that he got in on the third vote.
But
there's only been 2 guys that get in on the first. Jerry Rice at his position. Jerry Rice and Randy Moss this time. I don't think T.O.'s on the same level as those 2 guys.
Well, he didn't get in on the first ballot.
No, I understand that. So there's been no crime committed that he was in the third ballot. Same as Michael Irvin, who won 3 Super Bowls. Same as Marvin Harrison, who, was terrific. Got in quicker than Chris Carter, than Art Monk. There was no crime committed to T.O. because he had to wait.
Where is
if
he
Tony Gonzalez has to wait,
that's a crime.
That's a crime.
Next year's first year.
I may campaign against Tony.
I would.
I need somebody coming
I may campaign.
You know what? Kick rocks.
All right, back to the Super Bowl, which wasn't without some controversy, with 2 Eagles touchdown catches being reviewed and upheld by the officials, despite some questions over the always confusing catch rules. Cowherd, these types of plays have been driving controversy all year. Did the refs get them right last night?
They got one right and they got one wrong. Listen, the NFL went into that game, they wanted catches. They wanted catches. If you show me what you are, I believe you. All year, they showed me that play in the end zone, the back of the end zone. That wasn't a touchdown. All year long.
All year, they got it wrong.
Well, okay, fine. But when you show me your actions, show me your behavior, I believe you. All year long, that's not a catch because of a bobble. I'm sitting there.
It wasn't a bobble. The ball moved. It was not a bobble.
Well,
I don't think he ever truly lost control of the football.
Well, what's control mean?
Well, again, I agree, but I just don't think that movement was enough to say he lost control. And so our Rivian went with the call on the field, which is what they should do more often than not.
I think what you saw in the Super Bowl was this is how we're going to move forward with this rule because we know this rule stinks and we need to change it. If it's a catch, if you have possession, you're going out of bounds, you have right there, you dive over the course of the end zone, you have control of the ball, you break the plane, that's a touchdown. If you're going out of bounds, you have possession of it, you put 2 feet in, it doesn't matter. Once you're out of bounds, just like a running back. I think what we're seeing here is the way this game should be officiated. And by the way, how nice was it not to have a flag on every special teams play?
Fantastic.
How nice was it to, the last play of the game, you saw illegal contact 2 different places, right? Right? The defense should have had an illegal contact on there. You should have had that against Hogan. And then Gronk is just, manhandling people back there. Who gives a rip? If it doesn't change the course of your action, there's going to be some hand fighting. Tony, when you first got in the league, man, we used to get the hand fighting stuff. As long as you didn't just shove a guy off of his track, you were okay. I think what you saw was a well-officiated game, and the NFL needs to look at that and say, the pace of this game was tremendous. The way we officiated this game, it wasn't about us looking back and going, oh, it was so poorly officiated. I thought it was great last night.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the playoffs in general, the referees that make the playoffs are the ones that call the least amount of flags. And I thought that's how the Super Bowl went yesterday. Did they get that call right or wrong? They got it wrong, as far as I'm concerned, according to the rule.
Right.
But they got it right for the reasons
that.
Right. Yeah, the first one, the bubble in the back of the end zone, or did he break the plane, all that stuff. Those were catches. It's what needs to happen in the NFL. Coming from a guy who caught the ball, people want to see catches. This is what the fans want.
Can you at least acknowledge, though, if a New England player was given that touchdown that the rookie for the Eagles was, this morning rigged, the internet would explode. There'd be a congressional hearing.
There would have been problems,
yes,
but from me, there would be no problem because, and I want to be very careful how I say this because I really love Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth. But I think they injected controversy into these calls when they weren't that controversial. Both of them. Mike Pereira, who I really think
what did he say?
He said they were catches. Both of them. And he understood the calls. And I wish, I'm going to lobby Eric Shanks to loan Mike Pereira out to the rest of these networks so we can get some of this confusion removed from the game. Because it's like Mike Pereira is the only guy that gets it right.
By the way, I'm not arguing. I think they both should be touchdowns. All I'm arguing is on the one, I've been taught by the league that it's not a catch. I think both should be touchdowns. In my life, those were always touchdowns.
Again, I thought the first one was close. The call on the field should stand because there was not overwhelming evidence that he lost control of the football. Again, particularly if you watch in real time, the ball can move without you losing control of it, but you slow it down to this microscopic slow. Oh, look at that movement. And there was this brief half of a millisecond where he didn't have his hands on the ball. That's where we get into this gray area.
Right.
But again, I'll just say this. If Mike Pereira was out helping these guys, the broadcast would have been less controversial and less upset, particularly on the second one, which, you know, it took me sitting at home. At first I thought in real time it was an incompletion. Then once they showed a replay, I was like, oh, my God, that's a catch. The guy ran 5-6 steps or, you know,
That's why I would scrap pile instant replay altogether. I hate instant replay. That's scrap pile.
I don't think it helps the TV product. I think it extends the game by about 12 minutes of sitting around. Like, I do think you can make an argument.
I hate replay.
I think technology.
I want it right.
And by the way, but we want it right, but only only on the plays that you can actually replay, because there's some plays where you can't get it right. Oh, by the way, though, I want it right as long as I have a challenge flag. But if you're out of challenge flags, I don't care if you get it right.
Think about
Stop
every
that.
date.
But I want it right.
Think about every date. If there was replay, sometimes real time should be the only
If it was
time.
a replay, I'd still be a virgin. All right, welcome back. Time for last call. Let's move to Justin Timberlake, who performed at halftime of the Super Bowl last night, highlighted by a tribute to Minnesota native Prince. Cowherd, were you impressed with JT's performance?
I was impressed with the overall production of it. I mean, they lit the streets outside the stadium. It looked like he just left like a hunting and fishing store. I'm not sure about all that camouflage. But I think it was an incredible 20-minute performance. The production values were through the roof.
I've seen Justin Timberlake in concert twice in the last 3 or 4 years. I was disappointed with the sound quality. I thought there was some stuff that was lip-synced or whatever, which they probably all do. Just for me, having seen, I think his performance in live is incredible. Didn't meet my standards, but
yeah, but
you've
also seen him in like casinos where you have like 3,500 people.
No, I've seen him with just
Where?
9,000-10,000 people at the MGM Grand Arena. It's awesome. All right, well, JT wasn't the only one to put on a show last night, with Eli Manning and Odell Beckham Jr. performing a spoof of Dirty Dancing during an amazing commercial. Cowherd, was this your favorite commercial of the night?
No, the Tide commercial. How about the Amazon commercial? With Jeff Bezos, you didn't like that?
I don't remember it.
I didn't think it was a very good year for commercials. I thought people stayed away from controversy. It was kind of vanilla.
Morgan Freeman and Peter Dinklage, the imp from Game of Thrones.
I don't watch
with
Game of
Doritos.
Thrones.
Well, they were rapping and singing. I thought that was my favorite commercial. I agree with you, though. I thought it was a great call to back away from all the social justice message. It was fun.
110 million people watched it. It was a great.
It was fun.
It was really fun.
It was, and that's what to me, it's what the NFL needed more than anything, is people to walk away like, damn, that was just fun.
It was. My wife doesn't like sports. We had a blast.
Fun.
See you tomorrow.